It's interesting to see how both players are going to come to play with.
It is going to be very interesting. And one thing that is really catching my eye is the bottom here of Peter's team, where you have the Cresselia and you have the Ursaluna. Because that's a combo we've really only got recently because of the recent Pokemon Legends Arceus and having this new Regulation D format. So it's nice to see how that's going to pair in like a competitive environment. It's done very very well in online tours. I think it came second in the biggest tour we've had so far for the format. So it's going to be nice to be like, hey, players are picking this up, and it's going to be nice to see how it's operating on this team, especially because it seems to be a team where you've got 3 Pokemon that want to be in Trick Room, and then 3 Pokemon that want to be in the normal flow of play. But then Ember can retaliate that quite easily, because you have the Heatran and Mungus that like the Trick Room, and then the rest of them like to be super fast, which can, it's a back and forth, because you can be a detriment, because you can stop the Trick Room by being fast, or you can join in, you can play with them, and you can go slow as well.
And the Cresselia is like a pain to face because it can Trick Room, it can Ally Switch, it can do one of 40 things. It can be bulky, physically bulky, special. It's so hard to get rid of a Cresselia on the field once you see it.
It is pretty hard to get rid of Cresselia. Like, it did get a nerf in this generation with -10 to both its defensive stats, but it's still so bulky, and it still has tools that allow it to be so good. Its new move it got, where it basically just says, I'm going to heal so much health from myself or my partner, and remove all status conditions from both of us. That is amazing. And speaking of things being amazing, just instantly something has dropped. The Fluttermane just nuking the Urshifu, and it's gone, it's done, it's dusted. And that's both like a curse and a blessing, because you got rid of his strong Pokemon, but you're now allowing for a switch in to come in, and that Fluttermane is eyeing up both of these Pokemon and being super effective in both of them. Gonna force a Terra early in this game, I think.
Both players running Choice Specs Fluttermane, so that Choice Specs Dazzling Gleam will just rip through any Urshifu that's put in front of it unless they Terra to resist it. But we see Fluttermane and Amoonguss versus Cresselia Fluttermane. Similar matchup, a very fast, very strong Pokemon and a very bulky, very supportive Pokemon on the side. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here.
It's going to be interesting to what happens. Like you said, how these Pokemon are continuously bulky and not very bulky. Fluttermane, I believe it is the specs variant coming from Peter, so that's normally ones that opt to be a bit more bulkier. Obviously not bulky enough to take a Shadow Ball coming out from this Fluttermane. We've seen Moonblast coming out from Cresselia into that Fluttermane, possibly gunning for the special attack drop, because that is something that can be very, very good to this Pokemon. Like, yes, it's got one of the highest special attack stats in the game, but if you can control that, especially with a bulky Pokemon like Cresselia, you can sit there quite comfortably and be really, really happy.
And now we see this Cresselia Spore, so there'll be no shenanigans of Trick Room or anything for a while, and it really puts Ember in a pretty good position here.
Yeah, Ember in a very good position. Of course, putting Peter on his toes, it seems, because he's trying to think what to go with, and it's going to be a case, anything can come in here. You can maybe, if that Urshifu has come in the back, it would be very, very nice to come in here. Like, yes, Amoonguss annoys it by not being fully weak to its ground type attacks, and it can put it to sleep. That Fluttermane, if it looks into the right Urshifu, is doing nothing. And that's Urshifu, I meant to say Ursaluna, but Urshifu, it's Brother Bear coming in. And it's also going to put a bit of threatening pressure down, because it could start throwing out nice damage to both these Pokemon. Even that Amoonguss, I've seen some Amoonguss take about 50% from an Urshifu if the Urshifu is built in the right way.
Oh, of course, and the only thing we've seen that has had any big effect on Urshifu as a wall is Rocky Helmet Amoonguss so far. But as we are spexed into Dazzling Gleam, we might see a switch on the Fluttermane, we're not quite sure. It's looking like Landorus might come in to intimidate the Urshifu and provide a little bit of a buffer, but that Cresselia, we don't know what's going to happen to it. It's either going to sit there, get absolutely beaten up, or he's going to switch out, but it's still on his first turn of sleep.
It's still that first turn of sleep, There's always a miracle where you can wake up quite early, but I do believe because it was slept towards the end of that turn, it will have that guaranteed 1-turn sleep. So that's going to play a part in the flow of this game. You'll see a Chastisation coming out onto that Urshifu. It is going to go into that Grass-type Terror, so often you see the Water-type Chastisation to do even more damage with your Water-type attack. But it's going for that Grass-type Chastisation, so this is an amazing change that we've seen it be made, because it can make it so it's like, you take less damage, but that Shadow Ball kind of just says, you know what, let's just ignore that, let's do as much damage as possible in return anyway, as the Surging Strikes is going to remove the Fluttermane, so you kind of have a double whammy of that. You can't be Spored, you can't be Rage Powdered, so that Fluttermane was going down no matter what move happened, and it just gives Urshifu that comfort, especially when it lived on that sliver of HP after that Shadow Ball hit.
And the Terra Grass, as you said, resisting Rage Powder, Spore, not affected by anything. And we do see the Spore come into the Urshifu, and it's unaffected. Urshifu is now in such a prime position, took no damage, and is just out here ready to wreck house.
Yeah, it took no damage, and it's ready to cause chaos right now. Like, it's been intimidated, but then again, like, you've got your Terra Grass, so you can take, you can take the Spore, you can take every direction. You can go for a Surgeon Strike in that Landorus if you outspeed it, and that Landorus is most likely gone because your crit's just going to ignore the drop you got. Cresselia has a chance to wake up, so you can maybe go for a Protect plus Lunar Blessing to get the HP back. You can recover any sort of like mitigation that's there. It doesn't look like there's going to be anything going off of that because your Lunar Dance is going to go before any spores go off. So that's going to be very, very annoying, but it's still something that could be in the books after Peter. We do see a Terastallization coming out though. Onto that Landorus, it's not going to enjoy taking those water type attacks. It does go for that flying type, which is going to be very, very good because it loses that potential weakness with Ice Beam if it is carried there on that slot, but guarantees you're not taking as much damage to the water type attack, but still does a large chunk, especially with that crit, and doing more and more each time. As I do believe we went from a low roll into a high roll. I believe that might have been another high roll again there.
But I do fully believe that Terra saved that Landorus' life right there. And we do see the Terra Blast come out from Landorus, Terra flying, that's going to kill 18 grass Urshifus back to back.
Especially at that sort of HP range. Like, it's one of those cases like you could have gone for the Earthquake, but you don't want to hit into your own slot, and like it felt a little bit wasted of a Terra really, because like yes, you take more hits from that Surging Strikes, but now what you're going to do, you Terra Blast into like a 1 HP Urshifu, like that thing was going to drop to a sneeze. We do see Luna coming in, of course Earth King as well as being called here on this screen, so I do believe that is the French name or one of the European names for it, but it is the King. It's the King in my heart. Ursa Ring was my favorite Pokemon. I got a Worlds invite in 2014 by using an Ursa Ring team. That was very, very fun. And, I just champion it all the way. Not as good as it used to be, but our big round lad here, he's here to save the day. He's here to save my childhood heart and just kind of throw things under the bus just by staring at them.
Let's not forget, Ursaluna being the prime Guts user in this format, especially with Terra Normal, where we've seen the Terra spent in this match, but Guts Ursaluna is absolutely a threat and will destroy most things put in front of it, to be honest.
Yeah, it just rips through things. It just really, really just like shreds through them, and like it's one of those Pokemon that like I enjoy seeing, but like people are saying it's not very good. Like it's a very hit and miss Pokemon because yes, it's super strong, but it's slow. It's weak to water types, weak to grass types. It feels like a Terra Hog. It feels like you have to Terastallize it to get its biggest potential. We do see though that there is just a nice punch into that Landorus there, getting the guaranteed knockout. I think any move would have knocked out the Landorus given the sheer stats that are on this thing, but no, a bit more safe, a bit aware for measure. As you see a Spore go out, but going into that Cresselia, trying to maybe call, maybe an ally switch or something, allowing that Ursaluna to get its burn up, and Ursaluna is quite happy and comfortable. And I do believe we did just see Ember go for that forfeit, just thinking, you know what, I can't carry this through with just an Amoonguss. You've got your boost, you got open to ally switch and stuff. I'm just gonna go and say, take the win. I'll sit back, I'll relax, and go into game 2 and reconfigure what I do in that game.
The Terra Grass play was a fantastic play because it effectively neutered the Amoonguss to where it couldn't do anything for the whole match. Like, the Spore was out, the Rage Powder was out, the Crest was already asleep. The Crest wasn't needed.
Yeah, it really put that dampening on it because, like, really, I thought it was there just for that Urshifu. Like, it can redirect those strong water attacks, those strong fighting type attacks, and it puts that pressure on very, very quickly. And the fact that your one tool into that is now mitigated because it's Terastallized, like, yes, you have other options because now it's weak to different types. You can get, like, it's still weak to flying type regardless. Like, that's one of the downsides to it. But you just put that pressure on a game of one of your other Pokemon, and you can really, really show, what I have for that. And then even if you don't go for that full Terra, go for that Terra, you're still a strong Pokemon. Like, you can just sit there and be like, okay, you don't bring a Amoonguss this game, I could just not Terastallize, keep my normal weaknesses, and just go for a Surging Strike or something, and that thing is gone quite quickly.
Yeah, there's no benefit to Terra Grassing offensively, but the defensive benefit is insane. Being able to resist everything, not affected by Spore, not affected by Rage Powder, able to target what you desire, really. It's quite a play to have.
Yeah, it's just one of those Pokemon, one of those teams where, like, everything has a reason and a rhyme and a remedy to want to Terastallize, and that's just what feels very, very poetic about Peter's team. You have every tool possible there. As you said, like, you just don't Terastallize it and you can Terra something else. In this matchup, like, because they're very similar teams, both players kind of know what they're going into coming into these games. but it's still a case of like, if you can figure out one thing from that open team sheet that you see, you can then work out your entire game plan. Like, just that similarity helps so much. Of course, things like not having the Icy Wind on Peter's Cresselia means Landorus can sit a bit more comfortably in front of it. Like, yes, you can't Earthquake it, which is one of the main things Landorus does, but you can still quite happily know you're only getting hit by a Moonblast, and you can quite easily deal with the other Pokemon next to it, and then focus down it with like a strong Terra Blast, or you can go with something else in your team, like that Heatran can quite happily sit in front of it, and everything seems like it counters everything on this team. It feels like it's a set of dominoes. One Pokemon knocks out the other, another one knocks out the other, and it just becomes a very close game. And we see that Heatran does actually come for Peter, but it does not come in the lead for Ember.
Like, both players are running very balanced teams, but I think the thing I like about Peter's team is he can choose whether to Trick Room or not, and based off team preview, you can kind of bring the slower Mons or the faster Mons, depending on what's needed. And we see the Crest Heatran lead, and I'd love to see a Trick Room here, to be honest. I'd love to see the Trick Room come out in this tournament and absolutely make Ursaluna or Heatran just a boss Pokemon.
I can see it coming. Like, the only problem is like, you see that Amoonguss in front of you, like, but that is Ember's really Ember's only option to go into that. Like, you have an Amoonguss, and with something like a Heatran on the field, like, Heatran can quite easily just go for a Heat Wave and do big damage to both these things. Fluttermane being quite specially defensive won't really mind, and but Amoonguss doesn't like it, might even be forcing off that Terastallization, as we do see a Terastallization node coming out from the Heatran, is going to that Grass typing as well, getting a little Flower Crown, and that's going to be very good to that Amoonguss, because you can't be put to sleep, you take a little bit more damage from the Fluttermane, but we do see a Shadow Ball coming out though, so maybe not predicting heavily into that Terra, but still doing over 50%. Moonblast going into the Fluttermane. Do we get that special attack drop everyone loves? We do not. And Heat Wave cleans up, but does not get the final cigar.
But the Amoonguss does sport a Crest once again, stopping his setup dead in his tracks.
Yeah, it's stopping it in its tracks, and like, you can't see that Trick Room going up now. Like, I believe it went after the Amoonguss, so probably revealing that Trick Room. So probably thinking, if I can knock out Amoonguss quick enough, then I can just get Trick Room up scot-free. Now it's a little bit harder. Fluttermane has shown how much damage is thrown into both these Pokemon, and Peter has to respect this. But at the same time, with that Ursaluna in the back, Ursaluna can come in and can just throw damage hard down on these guys. You're locked into that Shadow Ball, so Moonblast is not a worry in the world for this Ursaluna. And it can come in, get its Flame Orb boost, and that can sit here quite happily. We don't know the EVs in these Pokemon, but a lot of players, especially on using Ursaluna, have opted to take a ton of the attack stat out, because it's already so high with that Flame Orb, and put it into special defense to give it a matchup into things like this Fluttermane.
Yeah, with that Stab, Guts boosted, Flame Orb boosted, Facade, it doesn't need the attack stat. It can invest heavily into bulk and still rip through teams quite happily under Trick Room. Because you're saying this Pokemon's slow, but it's bulky and it hits like a train. Yeah,
it's slow, it's bulky, it hits everything. Protect coming out here from Heatran, just keep himself safe, especially in front of the Pokemon was there. Fluttermane go for that Shadow Ball, is going to Protect, an amazing call there by Peter.
Perfect.
And it's just, that was a free turn, like that turn, that was clockwork. Peter Protect, Peter brings the Pokemon in, call that Protect well. It was that case of maybe Ember thought, if anything, the Pokemon that is weak to the Shadow Ball is what switches, so let's cover the thing that doesn't switch, so maybe both players reading into that quite well. But Peter just allowing himself to get the Ursaluna in. It's not in Trick Room, but it's still going to put that presence out. And with moves coming out of this Heatran, compared to what Landorus was doing, now that it's that Grass type, it's not taking as much. And that could be another forced Terastallization from this Landorus, so it can actually have a chance at knocking out the Heatran in front of it.
And Peter's in quite a good position here because he knows the Fluttermane can't really hit anything to guarantee a kill this turn, or it'll have to switch because it is locked into Shadow Ball with that choice specs. We do see him withdraw the Heatran and actually bring him back out the Cresselia, who is taking a nap. And we see the Fluttermane Shadow Ball into the Cresselia slot, choice specs, and that's the Cresselia. That's a one critical hit.
We don't know if that mattered, because like Cresselia, as we were saying earlier, is so bulky, but Stab, super effective, choice specs boosted, probably highest most back in the game. Like, was that really needed? We don't know, but I think Peter's probably shaking his head, probably thinking, that could have been not a crit, I could have not switched. Yes, you would probably lost your Heatran, but at the same time, losing a Heatran is the end of the world, especially if you can keep your Cresselia safe in a situation like this.
Someone calc that and let us know.
Yeah, so someone who's watching in chat, calc that. We have many players here who love to do their calcs. I will feel horrible for Peter if that was like that
If
would have
that was
slipped.
like a
Yeah,
90% roll.
yeah. Or that. What I hate is like when you do your calcs and like a crit could leave like a non-crit could leave you on like 1 HP. So it's like either way it's a loss. Ice Punch being utilized here into the uh, Amoonguss as
Amoonguss.
well. Uh, doesn't do too much, but still puts a bit of pressure on it. Maybe not thinking Facade would go through too well. Just want to be like, you know what, let's Ice Punch. I could freeze if anything, and then if not, then, super effective damage. Might have tunnel visioned a little bit, just thinking, oh, it's super effective, click it, forgetting, the Facade would have done immensely more damage.
I mean, looking at Ember's team, it's quite a safe play to go for, considering he's got the Landorus T, he's got the Thunderous Eye, he's got a lot of stuff weak to ice, and if he was predicting a switch here, it was a bold move, but it could have benefited him in the long run, especially if Lando was going to come in to intimidate drop the Ursaluna. You
Yeah,
never know.
you never know of these things. Like, Earthstone is in a slot where it can quite happily, like, it has to go for a ground type move or an ice type move into the Flutter main. Its only ground type move is Earthquake, which, even though yes, you Terastallized on your Heatran, isn't the nicest thing to go for, especially because you're now losing your fairy resistances that you did have against that Flutter main. Protect out for Amoonguss, so the pressure is down on that Amoonguss now to make sure it isn't going down too soon. See Shadow Ball coming out, going into the only slot I can really Shadow Ball into. That's the one of the detriments of being choice locked. Heatran drops
a
the...
high roll that drops the Heatran with Shadow Ball there. The last hit did just under 50, I think.
I want to say it did just below 50%, so getting it all the way through. But going for the Ice Punch into Flutter Main, getting a knockout there is an amazing call there by Peter. So again, it's that case of like, you can go for the Ice Punch if Landorus comes in, it's taking a big chunk. If not, you're hitting into thing with like base 50 physical defense. That is not going to take it very, very well. Urshifu is the option coming here, so we've got Bear facing down Bear. Now, unfortunately, one of these bears has a bit more of an advantage, giving its typing and moves it has to its access. But Flutter Mane quite actually, puts a lot of pressure on that, even if it does give that Chastisation that we are seeing a player hovering over.
And of course, the other Fluttermane is also a Choice Specs variant, which deals very well with Urshifu, so it'll be interesting to see what happens here. This is, I would say, the pivotal turn of this match more than any, because depending on what happens here, we could see double KOs, we could see stuff go asleep. It really all depends on what the players are thinking and feeling here.
Yeah, it depends on what they're thinking of doing. Like, it's going to be a wild ride from here, because we do see a Transportation coming out. I do believe once that is the that is the Urshifu Transportation, because the no Transportation is on the opposing side. It has been burnt on that Heatran. By being Terra Water, you get your higher damage output, which is very, very nice into both these Pokemon. But at the same time, you still have that fear of Flutter Mane is so, so strong and can probably just break through this. With Dazzling Gleam in its arsenal, it can go ahead and do that. It drops an Amoonguss and puts Urshifu down to its yellow, even after Crystallization. And you can probably knock out either of these Pokemon, but even with one of them knocked out, you're still getting the other one targeted you. And it is the Ursaluna that is a target. It's going to drop down to that like a leaf in the breeze. But still, we have got this super, super powerful Fluttermane just sat in front of an Urshifu that has no HP, which is very, very scary for Ember in the moment. The Landorus could be a tool to help out here.
And aside from Pokemon like Dragon Ball, Fluttermane would be one of the fastest things in the format, clearly outspeeding both things on Ember's side of the field here, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do versus this. But we do see the Terra Water Aqua Jet come out from Urshifu, and it does about 55% to that Fluttermane, and the Dazzling Gleam does drop the Urshifu.
Dazzling Gleam drops the Urshifu, but with that Assault Vest Landorus sat there, even the strongest Pokemon don't break through this. And with Stomping Tantrum being clicked, Aqua Jet wasn't the strongest move, even that Terastallization, so it's not going to be doing too much damage, but the Stomping Tantrum clears it up, and it is now 1-1 apiece.
We are going to see a Game 3 from PK and Ember.
We are going to see a Game 3, and what an amazing Game 3 to see as well. Like, similar we had with Matty and Brian, where they were very, very similar in skill level. These players are both similar in skill level, given where they are in the tournament. They also have pretty much the same 6. So it's going to be a case of, who comes out on top with their version of Chalk. Is it going to be Peter with the Ursaluna version of Chalk? Or is it going to be Ember with this more, I guess, modernized version of Chalk, with your things like Flutter Mane and Rapid Strike Urshifu being like the main tools in the whole thing?
Yeah, both players clearly have potential to win this, and again, I would love to see a Trick Room come out from Peter. I'd love to see the Bodacious turn 1 Trick Room, or like Ally Switch into a Trick Room, because I really want to see Ursaluna just rip something apart.
I do like, as a fan of Ursaluna, I do want to see it just look at something and just rip it. Like, you could either switch it in after you trick room. You could do anything. The only problem is that Amoonguss just being there. Ember knows that that spore is going off before Cresselia can set up that trick room, and that is one of the biggest detriments. Amoonguss, if it comes in later, it's slower than everything. It's gonna put some pressure down. If it comes in the lead, it just spores it, and then it goes ahead and does some nice damage to it. But it seems Ember is changing some things up here, and is really benefiting from the fact that we could be seeing respect for the trick room because of where that Amoonguss is placed in the team preview.
Yeah, we do not see the Prankster Thunderous come once again, but I think Ember's kind of locked down to 4 favorites against this team. We're going to see some interesting stuff. He's got the Landorus, he's got the Urshifu, he's got the Fluttermane, he's got the Amoonguss. I missed what the last Pokemon was, but...
Oh, I didn't catch it either. I zoned out for a second there. But yeah, seeing what both players picked is well, at least what we saw Ember pick. It's going to be a good ride, and if we can see, maybe a trick room exploitation with Ember bringing the Amoonguss in the back, it is very, very good if we do see that trick room lead, because Peter feels like he'll have that free pass to go for that trick room if he leads with it, and then Ember can just shut that down completely by going like, okay, I can now switch in this mode, and we do see no Cresselia, which is also very scary, again, given you're forced to terrestrialize to take a smidge of your Earthquake, but that could be a Cresselia coming in the back there to switch in, take an Earthquake, and with Trap being Terra Water, you take those hits a lot better from Urshifu, and that can be big, big damage thrown down to both of these Pokemon in the space of a turn. Oh,
it'd be interesting to see, like, the Urshifu could close combat the Ursaluna slot and drop it. Close combat looks beautiful across the board here, but of course, as you said, the Cresselia could come in, soak up the hit. It's really hard judgment call to make here. You could see a double protect scout turn 1 here to see what player's going to do.
Yeah, we could see a double protect scout. Many options. There is the detect. Of course, you can't protect the Fluttermane, so that's kind of something that's kind of just going to take the fact that it's going to do anything. Protect coming out from Heatran, which is very, very nice, making sure that it's going to be doing very well. Moonblast comes out, goes into that Ursaluna, puts it down to about 20, well not 25, but about 30, 40% health, as Facade is the option to be thrown in there. So an amazing play there, just calling that you can put damage down. And Ursaluna, even though it was a threat, by the fact you could just switch in Cresselia and go for an Earthquake, isn't really doing as much as it would like to. Maybe revealing there is no Cresselia in the back there, just fearing that that Amoonguss was going to put so much pressure on it, and it just did not come, and maybe trying to pocket with the fact that you could see Amoonguss in the lead with Heatran, go for that Terra Grass, and just throw a Heat Wave into it. Goes into Ember's favour for this first turn, but we can never call it on the first turn, because both of these players have tools for everything. This could be the turn we see the switch, just getting Cresselia in safely, then setting up that Trick Room, and allowing Heatran to do its thing. But we don't see that. We see a Terastallization coming out, which could be very beneficial for whoever goes for it. And it is that Heatran going for that Terra, so it's becoming better in front of these water and fighting type attacks, but not quite so happy to be in front of that Moonblast that has just been choice locked.
Yeah, the Moonblast is definitely going to be doing a bit more, but the Ursaluna being at about 40% and the slowest thing across both teams as far as I know, it's going to be really hard for Ursaluna to get out any work unless a Trick Room is there to support it. But we see a close combat come into the Heatran, a critical hit doing about 75%.
Yeah, that critical hit coming in crucial. Of course, if that had Terastallized, that probably would have knocked out even without the critical hit. We see Terra Blast coming on through, so an amazing tech coming on out, goes into this Urshifu, and of course, unlike Peter's Urshifu, there is no Focus Sash on this one, opting to be that more super powerful Mystic Water set that just kind of throws damage down by clicking buttons. It's now a bit tit for tat. You put the Ursaluna in a situation where it doesn't want to be. You can easily take it out. This Heatran doesn't like the look of this Fluttermane either. Landorus can come in. It can intimidate the Ursaluna, but you're not doing too much to this Heatran unless you're going for that U-turn or maybe going for a Terra Blast of your own. So there is the option there, but it's going to be a case of who does this option the best. Amoonguss, can't sleep the Ursaluna because it's been burnt, and can't sleep the Heatran because it has been turned into that Terra Grass type. So it does seem Landorus is that best option. Let's see what sort of havoc it wreaks, given that it's, again, forced into that Terra Vacuum, if not just going for that U-turn to loop, which either of them are okay given what's on the field right now.
Yeah, it'd be great to see a switch from Peter to preserve the Ursaluna, but he's staring down a lot of threat here. Like, the Flutter Mane has so much health and so much speed that it can realistically threaten to KO about anything on the field. And with that Amoonguss in for support, or not the Amoonguss, the Landorus in for support, it's really like mitigated a lot of the damage that could come at it from both sides. But we do see a Terra come out, and it's going to be a Terra Flying into Landorus, excuse me.
So many different Terra types that come out here, but Terra Flying is quite terrifying for Peter right now because of the typing in the field. Protect coming out for that Heatran, so that terrifying factor is gone a little bit, but it's still that Ursaluna can be targeted down, and there it is. Ursaluna is gone, so unfortunately we won't get to see any Trick Room Bears going at it, and it is going to be lying purely what is in the back here for Peter. Heatran can maybe do it, like with this Terra Flying being thrown at it, it's not going to be very happy. And Flutter Mane is down in a position where no matter what comes in the back there, it's really able to throw any super effective attack. Well, not super effective, but super strong. It's locked itself into Moonblast, which is arguably the best move for it to be locked into. If that Heatran takes it nicely now, but nothing feels comfortable in front of this, as far as Flutter Mane I feel. And I feel like Peter really has to rely heavily on what comes through, as we do see his own Flutter Mane coming on out. But is it going to be enough to break through and seal that victory?
Being locked into Moonblast, Peter has a lot of potential to lock into Shadow Ball here, and this game could come up to speed ties. Like, this is a very stacked field. We have two Terramons, we have the Flutter Mane Ditto, both choice specs, both running a lot of speed investment, so we've got to see who's faster.
Well, it will come down to that speed tie. Like, Landorus has an okay matchup into the Flutter Mane. Like, if anything, Landorus could ignore the Heatran and just go for that Flutter Mane, and then go for Heatran afterwards. Amoonguss is coming in, which I guess if we see a Heat Wave coming out isn't the nicest thing. We see a Thunderbolt going into that Landorus circle, not being immune to it because it's lost its ground typing. Terra Blast coming on through, and I do believe that is going into the Flood. No, that is going into the Heatran. The Heatran's gone, you know. That's like I guess a deja vu sort of thing. Yeah, a revenge sort of thing coming out from Landorus. Like back in the day, you know, you would just like Earthquake Heatran and it'll be gone. Heatran can now start going for that Terra Grass and be like, ha, you can't knock me out the Earthquake now. And then Landorus goes, but I can Terastallize as well and go for a Terra Flying and then knock out in return anyway.
It's almost like Gen 5 VGC never died.
it never went. Every 3 years it comes back to haunt us. Oh, but yeah, we're in a situation now where again it's like it could go anyone's way. I want to say that we see Ember on the upper foot here, on the upper hand, because you can throw strong attacks to either of these Pokemon. Amoonguss is taking nothing from either of these. Like Flutter Mane pressure a little bit. Rage Powder comes on out, so you know whoever isn't going to be targeted is probably going to drop down. Thunderbolt goes to that Amoonguss, can do minimal damage, and we'll see who the Landorus goes for. I want to say that it's more scared of something like that Flutter Mane, because you can deal with the Urshifu later on with your own Flutter Mane. And
we see the Rocky Helmet going to do triple damage to that Urshifu, effectively getting into kill range of anything else, while the Landorus is totally untouched and has free reign to attack whatever it wants on the entire field.
Yeah, it has complete free reign. Anything is going everywhere, it just has to be at its beck and call. We see that Terra Blast coming out, going into what I believe is that Urshifu, so it is, because it's lost its sash because of the Rocky Helmet, it is going to drop instantly, and this has gone heavily into the hand of Ember after a dominant game we saw from Peter in that first one, and all it is just a Rage Powder and Terra Blast away, and that thing is dropping, and there it is. That is just clockwork, textbook of VGC. You redirect, you allow things to happen, and this has gone very, very well. Thunderbolt, nothing again, but you know that's mostly a consolation prize, as we'll see how much this Terra Blast does if it does finish up the game. This is a strong Pokemon into a fragile Pokemon. Let's see if it is the closing act.
Oh, fantastic plays from Ember here the whole way through. But it's not actually enough to kill.
It's not enough, but this thing's locked into Thunderbolt. If anything, you rely on like power after power after power after power on the Amoonguss, but I think that's too much to pray for in this style of play. And I think now you just throw damage down of your Ember and you just get it on. There's that Rage Powder, no paralysis, so it's not the end of the world.
And then is free to clean up here.
It's gone. Look, there's that Thunderbolt. Does nothing. Puts it into the red finally, but Landorus, just eats this up, throws his little balloons in the air, gets that final blow, and we're seeing Peter going down and out, and Ember crawling back a further through the tournament. Again, an amazing display after kind of just coming to level 1 and just being like, you know what, I'm going to sweep the competition besides the top player.
Yeah, like not much has stopped Ember except for Mr. Matty Moo himself, who we are excited to see into the finals again.
Yeah, we're excited to see Matty in the finals. Of course, that is something in the near future. And for now, we're going to cut to another one of our many breaks just to rest our voices and get all the players ready for those final games. So don't go anywhere.
I'll see you soon.